Hey, what's going on, folks? Today, I'm going to show you how to get thousands of leads using D7 Lead Finder. Now, if you've tried D7 Lead Finder at any point in the past, you know that the raw data from the platform doesn't always come out, or almost it never comes out in a totally usable format, and it needs a little bit of manipulation in order for it to really be ready for campaigns. And so if you've heard D7 Lead Finder isn't a good platform, it really is just because the data needs work before you can use it effectively for prospecting campaigns. And the biggest things that you really want to think about is that D7 Lead Finder, it doesn't provide you with first names for the contacts. So, unless you have a process for that, you have to be like, hey there, instead of, hey, Sally Sue. It also gives you a lot of generic emails, which you don't really want to email anymore for deliverability purposes. And additionally, when you pull scrapes, because the way that the platform works is that you come into D7 Lead Finder and you search by keywords for different categories of local businesses, right? So if I wanted to look up med spas, I could look up med spas in certain cities, or I could do a bulk search and I could look for med spas in the top 100 cities in Alabama, Alaska, whatever the state is. And it'll pull all of those searches into one. And when you actually look at the data after you've scraped that stuff, it a lot of times it will include data that isn't in the category that you search for. So if you search for med spas, it might return back landscapers or stuff that's not closely related to what you were actually trying to get leads for at all. And so there's a bunch of different ways that you can go about fixing that problem and improving, or all of those problems, and improving the data quality. But my personal opinion, if you're thinking about, should I buy D7 Lead Finder? If so, what tier should I buy? My personal preference, I think you should just get the professional tier. The biggest reason is you're going to get the categories. If you have a tool like Clay, you can solve this without categories. But if you purchase the professional tier and you get the categories, you can do this for free, and it's not going to cost you any Clay credits. But you also get all kinds of other information that could be really useful for you for targeting and campaign purposes. I'd say a lot of this stuff is more useful for a marketing agency. If you're a marketing agency trying to run cold email campaigns, knowing if someone's running ads and what platform they're running ads on is super useful. But the biggest thing that you're going to get in this plan are the categories, and you'll see why that's useful in this workflow that I'm going to show you in just a second for how we go about fixing the data and enriching the leads. So without further ado, let's dive in here. And so the example that we're going to use are med spas in Alabama. We pulled all the med spas in the top 100 cities in Alabama for this example. And so before we upload a list into Clay, we delete a lot of the columns out, or we at least remove them just for this purpose, because D7 Lead Finder is going to give you a ton of different columns. And if you upload all of those into a Clay table, it's going to use a lot of the columns that you can use in your Clay table towards the max, and you're not going to be able to do as many enrichments. And so my suggestion would be to get rid of as many as you possibly can, so that you can just use a bunch of different enrichments to try and improve the data. For this exercise, we kept the company name, phone number, the email that D7 Lead Finder gave us, although we're not really going to use this till the end, the email host, the website, the category, the LinkedIn URL, and then Google Maps. We don't end up using all this, but this is how, what we uploaded, because we thought maybe we would use this to build the table. But the first thing that we do is we're actually going to use the category to only make sure that we've got companies that fit our approved category. So if we pulled med spas, we don't want landscapers. And so this first step is referencing a separate Clay table. And so when you pull that list from D7 Lead Finder, you're going to want to look at that CSV file and look at all of the categories that are in it. And I would sort it from A to Z, look at all the categories, and then check what are the categories that actually fit your prospecting use case. And I would create a separate Clay table with a reference of all of these different categories. And that's going to be the first thing that you're going to want to run all these leads through. And then the rest of the table is only going to execute if the company fits within your approved categories. From there, this is actually one of my favorite steps in this workflow, because right now as of December 2024, when we're recording this in preparation for 2025, deliverability is constantly changing. It's a lot harder to inbox on Microsoft inboxes. And so we want to make sure that we separate those out and either avoid emailing them altogether or wait to email them until you've got, more aged domains with a better reputation. And it can cost credits or money with different validation tools to check the MX records of the domain for each recipient, but this is a free way that we figured out how to do this. And so this is using an HTTP API request using the domain. So you have to clean the domain and remove all this formatting on the front and any slashes on the back. And then this will ping the DNS records of each domain, and it will return back the MX records and tell you whether or not they're using Google or Microsoft or some other type of email service provider, so that you can separate these out. And so we separate them out into different views here so that you can, if you want to, not email Microsoft emails because they're harder to inbox on right now. And so you can check the DNS records here, and then you'll need to use a formula, and I'll drop this down below to actually decipher the results, because if you look in here, it's got a bunch of different information, and you can, if you go one by one, you can tell, okay, they're using Outlook, but if you apply this formula, it's going to be able to read all the different variations that it could possibly be and then output an answer for you. So I'll drop this formula down below so that you can use this. And then from here, in this workflow, we are not going to enrich for any of the Microsoft accounts. We are only enriching for the Google accounts or the other accounts. Now, if you want to also enrich for the Microsoft accounts for your table, this basically works the same. Just some of your formulas are going to be a little bit different as to whether or not you enrich for the email or you look for a contact at the company. But the way that we are approaching this table and the data from D7 Lead Finder is we're actually just going to assume that we don't have the email at all, because the problem with a lot of these emails, like we were talking about before, is that they're either generic emails, which we don't want to send to anyways, or they are a professional email, but it's like when I say generic email, I mean like it's an @Gmail or an @Yahoo or an @AOL.com. We don't want to send emails to those emails, but at the same time, it might be like a generic professional email. So like a sales @yourdomain.com or support@domain.com, which you can email to, but if we can find a better email for the owner, that's preferred. But also, D7 Lead Finder gives you emails that look like they might be for an individual person at the company. So it might have like a name as a part of the email, but it doesn't actually give you any records so that you can confirm that that contact is indeed maybe the owner or like a decision maker at the company. And so there's just so many questions about the data that we don't even really want to deal with on the front end. And so the way that we approach this is we just assume we don't even have the email. And so if we didn't have the email, but we had a list of these companies with their website URLs, how would we go about finding the right contact at the company and then enriching for their contact information? So that's how we approach this. And what that means is that the first step, actually the best source of truth, if they have a LinkedIn profile, which not a lot of local businesses do, but some of them do, and it's a starting point. We actually use the LinkedIn profile as the first source of truth here for the rest of this enrichment to get their contact information. And with D7 Lead Finder, a small little nuance about their data, if you look at the information, it gives you a mixture in the same column. It's kind of like dirty data. It gives you company LinkedIn profiles and personal LinkedIn profiles in the same column, which is, you know, if you've ever used Clade before, you can't continue to enrich the contact information in the same, it's just going to end up being dirty. And so we split these out to identify whether or not it's a company URL or a individual person LinkedIn URL. And the way that you can do that is by looking at the URL here. If you look at this as a company URL and it says company, so we can just identify those keywords using a formula in Clay. And then if it doesn't say company and it's just got this IN here, then this is a person's LinkedIn profile account. And so if the formula here basically says that if it's not a Microsoft email and we have the LinkedIn URL, then I want you to tell me if it's a company LinkedIn profile or a person's LinkedIn profile. And then from there, we have two separate workflows that look almost the same. So as you can see here, we're enriching for a person on LinkedIn, and then we're looking for their emails. And then from here, we're looking for a contact at the company. So you can see this enrichment is associated with the company. We're looking for a contact at the company, and then we're also trying to find the email for that contact. And so that goes on for this entire list. So we're either looking for to enrich for the person's LinkedIn profile so we can pull their full name out and verify. And then we're trying to find an email. And then if we're able to find an email, we are double validating it here. If we were able to double validate it, then we're pulling out the name, the title. So we didn't need the title, but we pulled out the title initially just so that we could spot check and make sure that these were like decision makers at these companies. And then also their emails pulled through only if it's double validated. Now, as you can see in this step of the process, the yield isn't super high, meaning the number of people where there's a LinkedIn profile where we found the person and we found a valid email, there's not a whole bunch of them. And this step added quite a bit more complexity to the workflow, and it added a lot of enrichments. And so if I could go back and redo this, I might remove these steps altogether and just jump straight to this next step here, where if we weren't able to find a valid email using the LinkedIn profiles, we are then trying another method of enriching for the LinkedIn profile, and we're just using the website URL instead. And this actually had a pretty good hit rate. And so it had a better hit rate than trying to use the LinkedIn profile, simply because there just aren't that many LinkedIn profiles. And so we used the website URL to look for their LinkedIn profile. And the way that we did this is we still looked for titles, and we limited it to one contact. So we limited it to one here. It's going to tell you if it found more than one person in the results. People count 2 that fit the titles that you put in there, but it's only going to give you the one result. So don't worry about if you see more than one here. So then we map that name to this column here. And then this second enrichment here is paired up with this LinkedIn enrichment using the website URL. So basically, if we're not able to find the title contact that we're looking for, and we're not able to find the LinkedIn profile for that person, we're then going to use Clagent to look for the owner of, or CEO, leader of the company. And I'll show you the prompt here for this one. This took a little bit of kind of finagling to get to work. So you're a researcher in this industry. I'm going to give you a website URL, and I want you to do a bunch of research looking on their website, social media, or you can get creative with Google searches. Before giving me your answer, make sure you double check that the name that you provide is actually the owner of the company of like this website here. Just be exhaustive with your research. Take a whole bunch of time. If it seems like there's multiple owners, be careful to analyze all of the sources to try and determine who's most active, right? Because a lot of these local businesses, when they use titles, it'll be like, owner, and then another person will be like owner and CEO, and then another person will be like owner and physician, right? If it's like a med spa. And if I have the option between like those three, between who should I email, for example, about like marketing services, this is for a client who does marketing, I would choose to email the owner CEO title as opposed to the owner physician title. Physician's not going to care as much about marketing the owner, but not the owner CEO. I don't really know what they do, but I know that the owner CEO is probably going to be much more involved in the business and is going to care about driving more revenue. So, and then I wanted titles to be removed as well. So, depending on the industry that you're scraping from, they might have, if it's dentists or doctors or lawyers or whatever, they might have titles in there. In the later steps, what we're going to do is we're going to try to enrich for emails using these people's names. Titles could throw it off. And so I wanted to remove those as well. And so basically here, we're looking for the owner of the company or leader, CEO of the company, using the website URL to try and find them on LinkedIn. If we can't find them, we're using Clagent to then automate that research, and we are consolidating the names here. At this point, we're then doing a waterfall enrichment, and we're using the name that we were able to find. So as you can see here, these are consolidated. So we got Tammy from this column here, and then we got William from this column here. So this is a consolidation of this column and the results from this Clagent AI enrichment. And then we are doing a waterfall enrichment here, and we are validating the emails. Now, at this point, we've exhausted the best options that we have in terms of trying to find a better email. Like if we're ignoring the emails that we were given by D7 Lead Finder, we're like, okay, let's just try and find like the owner or like the head of this company and then enrich for their contact information. Basically LinkedIn and Claygent, those are going to be the best options that we can use to try and find the names, and then pair that with the website to try and find the valid email for the contact. And then at this point, we still have, as you can see, a bunch of different contacts where we don't have an email for. And so this is where we start to refer back to these emails originally that D7 Lead Finder provided us to try and get more contact information. And so the way that I thought about this is I want to know, is it a generic email like an @Gmail, an @Yahoo, an @AOL, or is it a professional email with like a professional domain? And the reason is because if it's a professional email, then I'm just going to use it for now and I'll validate it in a later step. But if it's a generic email, then let's see if we can find a better professional email to work with. And so this formula here looks at all of the top level domains. So that's basically like the TLDs, like the back end of the email. So the hotmail.com, the yahoo.com. So I would just steal this. This is like pretty exhaustive. I'm sure you could add more, but it's a lot of the different variations of generic top level domains. And if it contains any of these, then I want it to output generic for this column. If it doesn't, then output professional. And so if it found that it was a generic email, we're then going to use Prospeo to look for an email address that's associated with the domain. At that point, it's going to output the email for us, and some of these come with a name. So some of these come with a name, but some of them do not. And, as you can see, there's like a name in here, but, I don't really know 100%, especially at scale, like who that is confidently enough. And so, we're just using the data that's provided to us from Prospeo. If it's not provided, we're just defaulting to there. So, hey there, as opposed to using the first name. Then from there, we're then now this validation step is referring back to the original emails provided by D7 Lead Finder. So we are validating those. These are the D7 provided valid emails. And then what we were doing is we were having Claygent look at the valid email and the website to try and determine, can we address this email by a first name? Or do we have to address it as a hey there? And this prompt took a little bit of finagling to get to work well as well. So let me show you to you so you can take this. So we're going to give it the website URL and the email for the company. It's basically just like, do a bunch of research and look at the email and do your best to determine like, hey, can we confirm using the website information or something online, social media, business profile to determine that, this Dr. Adams is in fact still at the company as like some type of owner. And if they are, like, what is their name? What is their full name? It didn't do a great job initially understanding what I meant by generic email, so I had to clarify. I would say each industry is going to be a little bit different. So, this works for med spas or that list because like in the med spa list, we also included chiros. It kind of falls within this like beauty and wellness vertical that we're actually going after. Massage, if you're doing landscaping or something that's not beauty and wellness, like obviously they're not going to have emails that are like massage at wellness.com. It's going to be cut your grass at landscaping.com or whatever it is. So you'll want to adjust those. And then finally, we consolidate these. So all of the different emails, valid emails that we got consolidated, all the different names that we got consolidated. And then finally, the names that we are provided are not always in a good format. Sometimes they come out in all caps. This wasn't super great because this obviously isn't a name, it's the name of the company. So this is an absolutely perfect process, but we just wanted to normalize it. So again, we used a formula here to normalize this step. And that is pretty much it. Basically, we are just ignoring that D7 Lead Finder provided us an email initially. We're just going to look for who's the leader of the company, what is their name, and then we're going to combine that with the website to try and find a valid email. But we are also, we are checking the MX records beforehand for free. We are confirming that they're the right category beforehand. It's going to save us on some credits, and we only get that if we've got the higher tier of D7 Lead Finder. So definitely worth it in my opinion, but hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Happy to help you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Other than that, I wish you the best of luck.